Hi everyone and welcome to Creative Cakes by Sharon. Today I'll be doing a Batman Lego cake for you, and a lot of you guys have requested this, so I hope you're going to enjoy it. And this is going to follow on from some of the other tutorials I've done of some of the characters from the new Lego movie, including Emmett, Wildstyle and Superman. So let's get started. I've got here my Batman template, and you can get a copy of this in the description box below. I've got an 1-inch cutter, a board which I've already covered, an 8-inch cake, my fondant roller, a sharp knife, my pizza cutter, X-Acto blade, as well as a pair of scissors and my offset spatula. Got a little bit of water and a paintbrush. I've got some white chocolate ganache, black fondant, yellow fondant, a little bit of white, as well as some skin tone colour and some grey fondant. Now, as you can see, with an 8-inch cake, I can't quite fit my ears on, so I'm going to cut those out of one of the offcuts from the cake. So the first thing I'll do is cut around my stencil with my knife vertical at all times, and then I'm going to choose one of my offcuts to use to cut out the ears. And once I've chosen my piece, I'm going to push it up against the top of the cake, and once again with my knife cut around the edge of the template to obtain the ears. Before I clear up all of my scraps, I'm just going to take another little offcut and create a nice raised three-dimensional component to Batman's face. So I'm just going to place my cake on top of the template and trim it down to shape it into the shape of Batman's nose. Now, to create some of the ridges on Batman's face, I'm just going to cut along this line which is somewhat to the edge of his face. So with my scissors I'm just going to cut right around that particular line. Now I'm going to cut along these lines at the bottom of Batman's ears. This is going to help us when we make some indentations into the cake. So as you can see with my knife, I'm just going to cut down about 1 centimetre down into the cake, and then lifting off the template just slightly, I'm going to cut around the edge of the ears. And now we're going to extend this by cutting around that initial line to create a raised and lower component. So remember, we're only cutting 1 centimetre down, and once we finish this, we're going to put the knife at the edge of the cake and gently cut in towards that first deep cut. Now, to give the ears even more definition, I'm going to cut with my scissors along this line and then position it on the cake, and again insert the knife just a little way into the cake, and then once I've done this, again coming from the outer edge of the cake, cutting gently in towards that first initial cut. There are a few cuts, both vertically and horizontally, in creating this cake, but they all go towards creating a nice cake with a lot of definition and giving you those real Batman chiseled looks that he has. So take your time here and just go one step at a time. I'm just going to cut the stencil here to create the lower section of the cake for where we can see Batman's face, and then with my knife just cut into the cake about 1/2 centimetre deep, and then I'm going to make some vertical cuts in the mouth section and scoop it out with my offset spatula. Now, the last little groove we're going to create in the cake is along this line, which might be where his eyebrows would be, and just again cutting into the cake and scooping out a little section. Now we're going to clean up the bench and get ready for covering the cake in ganache. So first of all, we're just going to put a little bit of the ganache onto the cake so we can stick the nose in place, and then cover the entire cake with the ganache. You can see that my ganache is a little bit runny. I've just heated it up in the microwave, and this makes it very easy for you to cover your cake nice and easily without the cake ripping. Then just pop it in the fridge for about 15 minutes. Next, I'm going to cover my board, and I've got some yellow fondant here and my 1-inch round cutter. I've covered my board in grey, and I'm going to contrast that with yellow spots to create a Lego board effect. You could use whatever colours you like. So I'm rolling out my yellow fondant to about 1/2 centimetre thick and cutting out a series of circles with my 1-inch round cutter. Then we're going to use some water and a paintbrush to wet the back of these spots and adhere them to the board, both vertically up the board and horizontally across the board. I've got my stencil in the middle of the board so that I know where not to stick my spots, because the cake is going to be covering that. Now that the cake has cooled and come out of the fridge, it's firm to the touch. I'm going to smooth over the entire surface of the cake. So I've got some boiling water here and my offset spatula. So once my spatula has been heated in the boiling water, I wipe off the excess with a paper towel and proceed to smooth all of the edges of the ganached cake. I can now work on covering my cake in fondant, so I'm going to roll out my black fondant into about 2 to 3 centimetres thick, and then gently put it over my roller and move the cake into position and gently drape the black fondant over the top of the cake. In order to make sure we get the fondant into all the grooves of our cake that we've taken all the trouble and time to create, I need to gently lift up my fondant and let it fall into the cavities, and then just smooth along the entire surface of the cake at the top to make sure I've pressed into all of those spots. And then I'm going to do a little bit of a trim and then keep working and smoothing the fondant, and then finally with my X-Acto blade I'll do a nice strict cut right up against the bottom of the cake. At this point we can now transfer the cake onto the cake board very gently. Using the skin toned fondant now, I'm just going to roll it out to about 3 mil thick to create the part of the face that we can see of Batman, and just trim the template down around the face. And I'm just going to check it against the actual size I've got left in my cake, because this sometimes does change from the template to the actual size that you're left with the cake. And I'm just going to cut around the template and position that part of the face into that little mouth cavity that we created on the cake. Now, using the rolled out black fondant, I've just cut the template down a little bit further around the mouth. I'm just going to cut that out of the black fondant and then trim it down a little bit further so that we've just left with the white section or the teeth of Batman, and then use the white fondant to cut a section of teeth out of that, and then just position that on top of the black fondant and pop it into place on Batman's face. Just follow the same procedure now with the grey fondant to create the eye slots and position them onto the cake. I then used the back of my knife to follow the lines that I could see on the template and just press along those into the cake just to make them stand out a little bit. To finish off the cake, I've just rolled some little pieces of grey fondant and put them on the sides and bottom of his mouth to accentuate his grimace. And there you have your finished product, your Batman Lego cake, to impress your little Batman Lego fan. Hope you enjoyed my video. It'd be great if you could give it a like and perhaps share it with your friends. Please leave me a comment in the sections below, and you can check me out on Facebook at Creative Cakes by Sharon. And don't forget to subscribe to my channel for more fun cake tutorials. And once again, as always, thanks for watching, guys. Take care.